thank you for coming to our Friendsgiving 2020. I always put 2020 so we'll watch this back and be like, oh yeah. We got together anyway, so good job everybody. So in the spirit of giving gratitude, we're super grateful for this year that we were able to stay open, that you guys trusted us with your health and made us your health experts in a time where things are kind of rocky. And so we wanted to serve you and have you to our table, invite you to our table, and to prove to you that there is life after carbs, that you can have a social life and you can participate in the holidays and not be the big old weirdo. And hopefully you'll learn some recipes and things that you can bring to the table so that if you are in a situation where you don't have total absolute control over what's going to be served during the holidays, that you at least have enough things that you can have yourself depending on your program. So dig in, continue to eat, but I did want to do a presentation. The presentation today is going to be on how to meal prep during the holidays. So we have our traditional meal prep class, and this is the special holiday edition. And so we're going to talk about some of the recipes that we made, healthier substitutions for the common ingredients, and just kind of give you some statistics. So if you guys know anything about me, usually I start the lecture out by telling you all the bad news, and then I give you the solution and the good news at the end. So we always end with a solution, okay? So the reason that we came to start doing Friendsgiving is because what the statistic and data shows us is that the average person gains 5 to 8 pounds in the last 2 months of the year. So we call this the slippery slope. Like once we have hit Halloween, it's like Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, we can keep going, Valentine's Day, Easter, on and on and on, right? And so what we also know is that 90% of New Year's resolutions fail by February 1st. So we don't want you guys to become a statistic, okay? And so how to not become a statistic is to be prepared, and that's what we're going to help you do tonight. Any guesses? What do you guys think, how many calories do you think the average Thanksgiving meal is? Hey, you ran ahead. Any other guesses? You might not have heard her. 3,000? Do you guys know like what you should consume in a day on average? Yeah, some even less, like 1,500 to 2,000 is typical. So the average meal, one meal, is more than you should even intake in an entire day. Now, that doesn't include going back for seconds, like the leftovers afterwards, right? So depending on how early in the day, doesn't everybody kind of warm up the turkey and gravy and potatoes and have like a midnight snack? And then you go to bed with all that like lead in your gut. Okay, so some of the tips for success. Now is the time to actually start pre-ordering your turkey. So what do you think is wrong with commercial turkey? Like why would we tell you to go pre-order a fresh, farm-raised, grass-fed turkey? Hormones, antibiotics. So talk about one of the most commercial holidays. I mean, Christmas is more commercial, but they specifically raise these birds to get the biggest, fattest, plumpest bird because everybody thinks bigger is better. And so what do you think they do to get them that way? They have to give them some kind of stimulant to grow. So that's why when you get the organic turkeys, isn't it really hard to get a 25-pound organic turkey? That's because turkeys aren't naturally 25 pounds. Isn't that funny? Okay, so pre-ordering. So there's some local farms that we can give you some resources for that you can do that. You can even go to like Sprouts, Whole Foods, I noticed, is having it. Some of them are having you pre-order online this year, just so you know. So go on and reserve it, okay? Definitely pick a day to shop and prep. So this is whether it's the holidays or whether it's your normal week, okay? So in our family, we do it on Sundays. We do our little Instacart order, and then we get all the stuff delivered to the house, and then we put some things together to make it easier for ourselves during the week because we know once the week hits. Well, the same goes for the holidays, you know, so you have to put some thought into it ahead of time because if you aren't prepared, then you're not going to bring something that you can have or that's on program for you, personally. And so Sunday's a great prep day. I know Thanksgiving falls on a Thursday, so you've got to make sure you shop and get stuff because I've done this and waited till Thursday and like the stores aren't even open, or not all of them, or they have like reserved hours and then they're out of stuff as well. Using shopping services, does anybody use Shipped or Instacart, that's been like a lifesaver in our family. This is my husband, Scott, up here. So what we used to do is we would jump around, like we would go to church on Sunday, and then we spent the rest of the day like we'd go to Costco for certain things, and we'd stop at, what's the store? Native Sun, which is closed on Bay Meadows, and then we would go to Publix and Earth Fare. Huh? They're open at the beach, yep. So that would take our entire Sunday, and then we get home and still have to figure out how to like prep it and get prepared for the week. And so we realized like we only have a couple of days a week that we have some days off, so let's not do that anymore. What I have found is Instacart is a lot easier to navigate than the Shipt app. The Shipt app was great, except if the store ran out of something, then they would just select some random thing, and what I noticed in my pantry is I started collecting all these items that I'm never going to eat. And like they do have a great return policy, they'll take it back. It was just like week after week, like I started accumulating all this stuff, and then it made a project for me to have to go return it when I was trying to save my own time in the first place. So Instacart, what's nice about it is that if it's running low, like it'll say like grass-fed butter, if they're out of this, is this an okay like replacement? And you can say yes or no, and if it's not, you can search for other replacements, or you could tell them not to replace it altogether. So for that reason, I like Instacart a lot better. What I will tell you is they have a notes section in there. Go ahead and be picky and give them good instructions, like avocados, for example. What do you think would happen if I just put avocados in the shopping cart and somebody who doesn't eat avocados? Oh, my avocados, I wouldn't be able to eat them for a week. Yeah, and if I wanted to make guacamole or have them for my salads for the week, they're never ready. So like, you kind of have to say like ready to eat now, or give them some tips and tricks, because a lot of the people that are shopping those stores, even though they're shopping at Whole Foods or Sprouts or one of the alternative stores, they might not have a clue about what the items are that you're eating. So that's what I noticed. Anybody have any tips and tricks on using one of the grocery store deliveries, or a favorite? No. Use your notes. Yeah. Yeah, you kind of have to teach them a little bit. And you can grade them after. So when they give you a replacement, you can say it was a good replacement, not a good replacement. And that's the only way they're going to really learn on that too. So we have a promo code on our website. There's a spot for like our favorite things. And so the Instacart app, I think it's under featured products. And the Instacart thing is there, and you can get $10 off your annual subscription by using the link. So feel free to use that. Make a plan for the entire week. So that includes your lunches as well. So this is not just necessarily holiday, but also after the fact. What I noticed is like on holidays though, people are just thinking about getting through the holiday meal itself, and then breakfasts and lunches and the days after, and you might have like a 4-day weekend. And so instead of letting the whole 4-day weekend go to wash, or being stuck with all the leftovers if you're hosting and feeling like you need to use them up because you don't want to feel guilty for not using your food up, you know what I mean? Make a plan for the entire time that you're on vacation, not just getting through that one particular holiday meal. The big thing is reusing stuff. So when you prep food, my thing is if you're cooking, like say you're chopping onions and carrots and celery to make the grain-free stuffing that we provided for you tonight, well, if you have other menu items that are going to use onions and carrots and celery, chop a whole bunch, put it in baggies or containers, and put it in your fridge. That way, on an evening maybe when you need to cook or prepare food and you don't have a whole lot of time, isn't that the part that takes all the time, is peeling and chopping and cutting all your produce? So do that bit ahead of time, and then maybe all you have to do is grill some meats or deal with your proteins, and then it's easy to put your vegetable sides together. Make sense? I like all the head bobs. I know you're still awake. You are not going to get a carb coma after this meal because there's hardly any carbs in there. Okay, so have good storage containers available. So I learned this from my mom and my grandma. So we are Italian. I was raised on pasta and lots of baked goods. And so when people freak out when I say, you can't have carbs anymore, what am I going to eat? I'm like, believe me, like I figured this out. You can do it. You absolutely can. But what they taught us was to bring their containers to the meal, and everybody got their leftovers so that one person didn't just get stuck with all the stuff. Okay, so I don't know how close you are with your family. Maybe they would think it was weird, or like you just show up with your containers. Like, I'm just expecting to go home with leftovers. Yeah, and then in some cultures it might be considered like, I don't know, it might be a critique if you don't eat everything on your plate, so I don't know. But you should have leftovers if it's 3,000 calories a meal. So what I like to do, and what we did for a lot of the recipes that are in front of you tonight, is simply put your favorite item. So if it's pumpkin pie, put it in the search engine and put the words keto or paleo in front of pumpkin pie, and you'll get a whole slew of search options available to you. And basically what it's going to do is swap out like traditional flour for coconut flour or almond flour. It's going to swap out sugar and some of the higher carb sweeteners with monk fruit or stevia or coconut palm sugar that has a lower glycemic index. Okay, so this is going to give you healthier options. And it's not necessarily no carb. And of course, like the things that we served you today, yes, they're healthier versions, but these aren't all the time foods. You know what I mean? So has anybody in here learned the 80-20 rule? You better say yes. Okay, so 80% of the time you should be staying on program, and then the 20% of the time is left over for extras like birthdays, holidays, travel, times when you can't control it. We're going to take it a little bit further and say it should be 90-10, okay? So start with 80-20 and then try to move into the 90-10. So Thanksgiving, Christmas, those are once a year kind of a things, as long as you feel in control. Now everybody's different, right? So some people in our practice have such a carb craving or carb addiction that they have a little, like even maybe that cranberry sauce just triggers the sense, like your taste buds for sweet, and it triggers different hormone responses, and then they want and crave sweets thereafter. So you kind of also have to know where you're at and know your own body. So if it's a slippery slope and you're not totally healed of your carb cravings, which will come in time being on program, you might not even be able to dabble in some of this stuff. But if you feel like you have some pretty good control and you've already tested the waters a little bit and you can get through it, and then it's not that, it's a mindset thing, right? Like, oh, I messed up yesterday, so I might as well, like, what does today matter kind of a thing, and then the next day, and then you just keep persisting. So you don't have to do that. Okay, make plenty of non-traditional dishes like Brussels sprouts and salads. Did anybody try the Brussels sprouts? So thank you, Diane. Where's Diane? Diane made the Brussels sprouts for us. And so that's key number 2. You can live without carbs is key number 1. Key number 2 is Brussels sprouts can also be delicious. You're learning so much. Well, isn't that one of those foods that people are not really willing to try? It might not be your introductory vegetable, like if you're just new to like eating healthy and kind of cutting out the carbs. But you mix it with some like ingredients that you love. And here's a hint for you guys. Bacon is really awesome on Brussels sprouts. That's how I got Scott to start eating them. Garlic. Yeah, olive oil, garlic. Huh? Cheese. Cheese, Parmesan always makes everything. That's how you get kids to eat vegetables. You just put cheese on them. But lots of salads. So that's the thing. If you fill up on a lot of the vegetables, and then even if you do cheat and have a little scoop of the stuffing or the potatoes, because some of this is just nostalgic, right? Does anybody have like a dish where they're like, that's my mom or my grandma's made it every year. Like it's not Thanksgiving if I don't have it. Yeah. Everybody's like whispering. Yes, you all do have that, whether you said yes or not. So you can either put the word paleo or keto in front of it and see if there's some just alterations that you can make. Because if most of the ingredients, the flavorful ones, are the same, chances are you can that's my favorite thing to do is try to healthify like people's traditional meals and prove to them that they can still feel satisfied and full and not miss out on life, but stay on program and not totally sabotage their whole health. Make new traditions. So you know what? Your kids today maybe don't have the same traditions that you had, or aren't so hung up on the same things that you've had, like that sweet potato casserole with the marshmallows on top. Does anybody still make that stuff? Confession! It's time for a confession. I do not know. Yeah, I still don't know I don't have a healthy alternative for that one. Sorry, guys. But you know what? When you start letting go of the carbs and you start making some of these modifications, just eating sweet potatoes with grass-fed butter and cinnamon on top of it will start to taste like dessert to you. So it's kind of funny, like once you start changing things, like even beets taste like candy. People like, I can tell people like, yeah, the doubters. But you'll get to that point. So I'm like advanced. You know, I've done this for like decades. So I crave kale. I don't crave sugar. That's a little weird for most people. But you'll get to a point where your taste sweet and taste the weirdness. We're okay. How many people are going to eat at somebody else's house this Thanksgiving? Most? Are you eating at my house? Okay, come on over. I don't know. We got to figure it out. And then how many people are making the food? You all contribute? Okay, got it. So that's good because you have some control over it. So some of the things that people, has anybody felt like the big weirdo because you have food sensitivities or restrictions? Does anybody feel kind of singled out because of it? Okay, I got some head bobs. You're cool with it. Yeah, that's like me. I'm just like, yeah, deal with it. I'm like, you can make your stuff and eat it, but I'm not going to eat it. So that's my confrontation level on it, but not everybody's there because they're afraid to hurt people's feelings, or, you know, it might be traditions or a group of people where, you know, they're just not willing to make changes and they're not maybe interested in being healthy. Isn't that weird that there are people that aren't interested in being healthy? Like, to me, that's the weird. So here's some of the 2 to 3 dishes. They're not all like breads and desserts. Make sure you bring something of substance. That way, if the majority of the meal, you know, you're not going to be able to participate in, that you have some substance that you're going to be able to fill up on. And then if you feel like you still have to be kind and just try stuff, you just put a couple of bites of things on your plate. And then if like Grandma Matilda's like, oh, did you love my sweet potato casserole? Yeah, it was so good, better than any other year. And then you can say that honestly because you had a bite of it. And you're like, okay, good, got that out of the conversation, done. I tried to use a name that most people wouldn't have. I don't want to like single anybody's favorite grandma out here. Okay, eat before you go. So it is a good idea, like just have a protein shake or something of substance so that you have a full meal in your body before you go. It's kind of that same idea, like don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry because you're going to buy like everything in sight. So make sure you're not starving. Most people fast because they're like, oh, I got to fit in those 3,000 calories and I wear my stretchy pants and make sure I can like get all the 3,000 calories in. Don't do that. You got to switch your mindset before you even walk in there. You go in with your game face on, right? To get prepared for the. This was actually Charlie. She's an associate. She works here, and she's not here tonight. But she really was afraid to hurt people's feelings, and I got to the point where I thought, I think, like, yes, we need to teach people how to eat and the healthier substitutions and things that they can have, but I think we also need to help people with those conversations about, like, it becomes less awkward. And, you know, like, I do think that there's a lot less stigma on it. Food sensitivities and allergies and conditions that are related to food are so much more common than they ever used to be, that like even restaurants have had to be able to start to accommodate that, and it becomes a normal, like I have this without that, or do you have a gluten-free bun option or gluten-free pizza crust, like because they know it's a medical condition, they have to take it seriously. And so we're okay with that in a restaurant setting. So you kind of have to go into your family settings with that same mindset. Like, and I just say, make me the bad guy. Like, I have no problem making Grandma Matilda mad. She doesn't even know who I am. She's probably not going to drive here. I don't think she has a license anymore. She shouldn't be driving. Don't let her drive here. Grandma Matilda? No, hopefully nobody does. I think a Grandma Matilda's going to be here like next week, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, she heard my lecture. But just use that same situation with your family. So like if they know you're on a health program and you're starting to eat healthy and it's for your own health and there's some good reasons behind it, hopefully it will become a conversation starter and you might actually inspire them to start getting curious. So think about it that way too. Like you could be a light to somebody else and kind of start to guide them and show them the way, and that there's life after carbs, where before they might have just thought like, oh, I just thought you were trying to be hard to get along with. So it doesn't have to be like a war or I don't like your food or your food isn't good enough for me. I think people have had these conversations. Yeah, so make me the bad person. Make others right. Do you know that there is this theory in life? It's not even just about nutrition and health, but like politics, we could use the election, like how much division there is. There's a phenomenon with people that they don't want to be wrong. And so sometimes when you get that pushback from family members or they take offense to the fact that you won't eat their food, it's because if your way is right and healthier, then their way in contrast must be incorrect in a way, must be wrong. Yeah, and so in an effort for them to not be wrong, they have to prove you wrong. Okay? So even though they know that it's a good thing for you and they're proud of you and wow, you got rid of sugar, I could never do that, instead of having those reactions, sometimes they're going to bash you or say, why would you even do that? Or some of the other like banter that comes along with it. So I think if you can kind of understand that, like understand that people just don't want to be wrong and they're not really offended. They just don't want to change. They're not interested. They're not there yet. They're not ready. And so that's why they're giving you so much like pushback. And sometimes people need to be dripped on, right? So how many of you have tried to refer somebody to our practice? How did that conversation go? I mean, some of them are here, so this is good. But most of the time, what happens most of the time? Right. And the reason for that is not everybody isn't ready right then and there. And I can't tell you, and it doesn't matter whether you're referring or they want to like switch out their mashed potatoes for cauliflower or learn some healthier dishes or how to make, pie without a gluten crust or whatever it is. They're not ready today. But if they hear it from Nancy, and then you come along and you tell them, and then Scott tells them a little bit of the same thing, and then Paul comes by sometimes even like a year later, and they're like, hey, did you hear, like, there's this cool new thing, keto, paleo, whatever, health by design, muscle testing, fill in the blank, that they're like, okay, you're like the seventh person that's told me maybe I'll finally go check this thing out. And then they finally come because that's when they're ready. And that's how people are. And that's a phenomenon not just in health but in marketing. Like nothing happens overnight. Like people, here we have Natural Awakenings magazine here. Do people ever just respond to an ad once? Don't you guys teach people that?
I won't even take a one-time ad unless it's for an event that's happening one time.
Exactly. Right. So that's a psychology factor. And then explain to family and friends that you have actual food allergies and sensitivities. And this is important for kids because doesn't Grandma Matilda think that she shows your kids who are all cleaned up and eating a clean, low-carb, no sugar, no processed diet, doesn't she think that to show them love, the best thing to do is to give them all of the sugar and blue artificial color candies and everything? Like, isn't she just waiting at the door with the basket to give the kids? So somewhere along the way, we were taught that food is love, and so they're not trying to do that to you, I don't think. I mean, maybe they are. Maybe they think it's funny to, like, get your kid all hopped up on food dye and neurotoxins and send them back to you, but that's not fun, right? You guys know what the ramifications are going to be for the next 24 hours and sometimes a week or even 2 weeks to start to clear those things back out of their system. And so if you could explain it, that it's an actual food sensitivity and it's contributing to their, and then I say, like, name all of the things that they don't like to deal with. Like, that's what keeps them up all night, and that's why you can't get them to sleep, and this is what makes them, like, crying and nagging and hard to get along with and highly irritable, and they're like, oh, like it does all that, So maybe you have to tell them that this is contributing, that food actually contributes to those things. They might not realize it. And then just give your testimonial, so in the spirit of trying to be a light for somebody else and encourage them and kind of show them the path and show them the way, that, tell them the benefits of it so that they can know that, like, hey, they'll see it in you too. Has anybody had a testimonial where people witness, like, ask you, like, hey, what are you doing? You look so great. Your skin's awesome. You've dropped all those pounds. You always look like so alert. You haven't aged a day. Those are the feedback that our patients get. So sometimes you just wear your testimony on your own person, and people are naturally encouraged to ask you what it is. But if they haven't noticed, which they should, shame on them, right? Sometimes people just don't want to say anything positive either. Like Grandma Matilda might be a really grumpy person. I don't know. But yeah, so the more that they can learn through you, the more interested they might become. So that's my tips and tricks on how to navigate the holidays. Of course, take the recipes. Am I have a slide with the thing? We do have a recipes section on our website. And on the website, it's just under like either blogs or recipes. So the blogs and recipes section is together. It's right on the home page on the main screen. And so all the recipes from tonight are on there. And then there's other non-holiday type recipes that are there. And what we've started to do for your convenience is categorize them. So if they're dairy-free, gluten-free, vegan, keto, paleo, or whatever, that way, depending on what your particular food restrictions are, hopefully you can just go to the section. And we're constantly updating it and adding to it. And then you guys, for fun, if you have recipes that you've already made healthy, we would love to post those and share them with our community. So it's not just our foods. But like Diane, we had her submit a couple of recipes so that we could, add to our repertoire. And that was great because we need some green stuff on our table at Thanksgiving as well. So that's my formal presentation. What questions do you guys have? Now that you've sampled the food, were you pleasantly surprised? Are you disappointed? You haven't ran for the door? Are you good? Yeah.
The pumpkin pie crust is just amazing. I haven't photographed.
What was the crust made out of? Because that's a cool substitution.
It's almond flour,
Uh-huh.
eggs.
And then seasoning. It has like the cinnamon and nutmeg. You actually put the seasoning in the crust so it's flavorful, so you don't need the sweetener in it.
Any molasses?
Yeah.
Butter.
And the recipes are on the table next to the items, so if you want to screenshot them, you can.
Sweetener with the coconut palm sugar. You don't have to use that. You can switch it to monk fruit or whatever you like, maple syrup. I think that's what made it dark.
Yeah. And you can always cover it too, like cover the pie with foil. Because what you'll learn when you're baking is kind of like a chemistry experiment, so there's not a lot of flexibility. Like I like making cooking food because when it's a stir fry, like you can just taste it as you go and keep adding and get it to what you want. Yeah.
In replacement of something, it doesn't work.
Right.
You have to use less.
Yeah, so that's a really good point too. So some of the sweetener substitutions aren't one-to-one, like a cup of sugar to a cup of monk fruit. So you can look up equivalency, like there's all sorts of tables online, like how many drops of stevia equals like a quarter cup of sugar, so you can do it. But it's chemistry, so if you start changing the percentage of dry ingredients to the percentage of wet ingredients, chances are your bread isn't going to come out all fluffy and gooey and like you're used to eating it. The other thing with the flours, the coconut flour and the almond flour, they're very high in fiber. That's why they don't have the high glycemic index, meaning they don't spike your blood sugar like traditional flour does. And so for that reason, it really absorbs a lot of liquid. So if you go one-to-one of like if it says white flour or baking flour to coconut flour, it's going to be dry as heck. So we've ruined a lot of recipes, and these ingredients aren't the cheapest things to purchase and stock your pantry with. And so, after ruining however many, $20 pans of brownies or something, like you're like, maybe I'll just look it up. And so what's the good news about this is now the online recipes and all the resources are so much better than they ever used to be. That's why I said just put paleo and keto. And what we usually do is find 2 or 3 recipes. So like that pumpkin apple bread that's in there tonight, there were pumpkin bread recipes and there were apple bread recipes, and there were some that just had pumpkin pie spice and others that you put your own spices in. And we kind of just put a couple recipes together, but the main thing was that we kept the wet and dry the same. And then you can put apples or walnuts or chocolate chips. Lily's stevia sweetened chocolate chips. Dark chocolate chips. So any other questions? Or anybody want to share something like a recipe that they've made over that they really like? Share your stories too, because I want you guys to mix together and learn from each other. You don't have to just take it from me. I'm not the most kitchen-friendly person. This is like, it took me years to put this together. Scott's laughing because he's like, yeah, that's not our happy place.
There's good recipes for pumpkin chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, pumpkin chocolate chip cookies. Online, like we found a lot. The ones that we've tried, we've posted. So the ones that we've posted means it comes out well. It's easy to make. It comes out the way you'd expect. And also the ingredients aren't too crazy to try to find, because some of the stuff is just like, yeah, that's awesome, but you have to like special order everything and all. So nowadays, like the sweetener alternatives, the ghee, coconut oil, avocado oil, the different flours are really easy to find. Like even Publix has a very good selection. So for most of the things we made tonight, you don't really even have to go to like an alternative grocery store. You can find them in your box stores if you do Costco or Sam's Club. Walmart has an incredible organic selection, believe it or not, if you haven't grocery shopped there. So you'd be surprised. Yeah, it's by demand. Any other questions? Yeah.
I have one about cookware and pans and all of that.
Yeah.
I was looking for a good omelet pan because my stuff is sticky and I had Teflon and I
Uh-huh.
can't get away from the metal and no glass.
Right. So there's cookware that's ceramic. Like the ceramic line cookware is a non-stick, non-reactive surface. And then there are companies that have like a natural non-stick coating. The big thing is it's not Teflon and that it's not going to peel off or react with your food. I used to actually sell Calphalon pots and pans. That was my little side gig, side hustle in chiropractic college. And if it's the hard anodized pan, it's aluminum, but it's spun, and they have this whole chemistry thing that it doesn't react with the foods, but it takes an incredible learn how to cook in it. Cast iron actually is healthy because you get iron in the foods that you cook in if you can learn how to use it. You have to season it, so you can't clean it the way you'd expect to clean, like and scrub a normal pot pan. But that's like some of the ones that are copper that are kind of good too, that still put some of the good minerals back in. But anything like stainless steel is awesome. Your temperature is really low, so like high would become medium. Am I saying that right? Medium will become low and that kind of thing. So things stick when the pan is super hot heated, and then it just starts to just immediately, like if it sticks in the beginning, you've lost it completely. Yeah. So if you can fry an egg in something that's a metal surface, then you could cook anything in it. If you can cook an egg and not have it stick. What other questions?
I wanted to mention, and I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer,
It's
but
okay.
I've researched the organic produce
Yeah.
topic because I had read some things that were concerning, and as it turns out, when our demand goes up, the big retailers find a way to provide what we're looking for.
Right.
And sometimes, and in the case of organics, there have been some really big
Yeah. Like they're cutting corners. Yeah.
A lot of our produce and things that we think are organic
Yeah.
are coming from China.
Yeah.
And Walmart doesn't,
Everybody's like,
the manager doesn't know, but your local health food store will know how they're sourcing their
Yeah.
vegetables and fruits. And I would feel even more comfortable buying from a local farmer direct
Right.
who is not organic.
Not
certified.
USDA organic.
Right.
Because they can't afford, the small farmers don't usually spend the money to afford like the organic certification. But she's right, and what I'll tell you is if you go to like Riverside's Art Market or one of the farmers markets and you meet, they're practicing organic practices and they're, pesticides and growth hormones, they are proud to tell you about their farming practices. They will stand there and talk to you all day to brag on how healthy their stuff is. They won't be, like hiding it under the table, that kind of thing, right? We do have a reading labels class. So if this was helpful and you want more information, we have every on our YouTube channel. Labels, there's stuff on meal prep, there's stuff on specific topics like hormone health, adrenals, like all the people come in, GI health, if I didn't say that. So I encourage you to get familiar with our YouTube channels and dig in and search the top particular situation. You're armed and dangerous with knowledge so that you can be a smart consumer. If you don't know, then profit a lot of money by selling you their products, and they do want you to get hooked on it. You know, what is it, Lay's potato chips, but you can't just eat one. Well, that's because solid bet against you, you know. Any other comments, things you want to share, or questions? Good. You guys are an awesome audience. You're definitely far leaps and bounds ahead the majority of the standard American diet people out there. So kudos to you.